10 experienced hikers set out into the frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains. Only one would return alive. Months later, rescuers discovered their abandoned campsite. The tent had been cut open from the inside. Boots were left behind. Warm clothing remained untouched. And footprints in the snow suggested that the hikers had fled into the darkness barefoot. What happened next would become one of the most famous mysteries in modern history. A mystery that has puzzled investigators, scientists, and conspiracy theorists for more than 60 years. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident. In January 1959, a group of experienced hikers began an expedition across the northern Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. The team consisted of university students and outdoor enthusiasts. Most were highly trained. Several had completed difficult winter expeditions before. Their leader was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. The journey was expected to be challenging but routine. The goal was to cross a remote mountain region and return home within a few weeks. 10 hikers originally started the expedition. However, one member became ill early in the journey and returned home. That decision likely saved his life. The remaining 9 hikers continued into the wilderness. It would be the last time they were seen alive. The group remained in contact through journals and photographs. The images show smiling faces, campfires, snow-covered mountains. Nothing suggested danger. But by early February, something went terribly wrong. The hikers failed to arrive at their expected destination. At first, nobody panicked. Delays were common during winter expeditions. But as days passed, concern began to grow. Eventually, search teams were organized. What they found shocked everyone. On February 26th, rescuers discovered the group's tent on the slopes of a mountain known as Koletsyakhl. The name roughly translates to Dead Mountain. The tent was partially buried in snow. But what investigators found inside was deeply unsettling. Most of the hikers' belongings remained untouched. Coats, boots, food, equipment. Everything suggested the group had left in a hurry. Even stranger, investigators discovered that the tent had been cut open from the inside. Instead of using the entrance, the hikers appeared to have slashed their way out. Why would experienced survivalists do that? The mystery deepened when footprints were discovered leading away from the campsite. Some prints belonged to people wearing socks. Others appeared barefoot. The temperatures that night may have dropped below minus 30 degrees Celsius. Leaving shelter without proper clothing would have been extremely dangerous. Yet that is exactly what seemed to have happened. The footprints eventually led toward a nearby forest. There, investigators made another disturbing discovery. The first 2 bodies were found beneath a cedar tree. Both men were barefoot and poorly dressed for the weather. Nearby evidence suggested they had attempted to build a small fire, but the fire was not enough to save them. As the search continued, more bodies were discovered between the forest and the campsite. It appeared that some members of the group had attempted to return to the tent. They never made it. Months later, after the snow began melting, rescuers found the remaining 4 hikers. Their injuries were unlike anything investigators expected. Several victims suffered severe internal trauma, broken ribs, crushed chests, massive skull fractures. Yet many of these injuries showed surprisingly little external damage. One investigator later compared the force involved to that of a car crash. Another disturbing detail emerged. One victim was missing her tongue. Others were missing soft tissue. The discoveries fueled decades of speculation. What could have caused such injuries? And why had the hikers fled their tent in the middle of the night? The Soviet investigation struggled to provide answers. Eventually, authorities concluded that the hikers died because of what they described as an unknown compelling force. For many people, that explanation raised more questions than it answered. Over the years, countless theories emerged. One of the earliest theories involved an avalanche. Perhaps snow collapsed onto the campsite. Perhaps the hikers feared being buried alive and fled. Supporters argue this could explain why they abandoned the tent so quickly. However, critics point out that investigators found little evidence of a large avalanche. The slope itself was relatively shallow, and some evidence did not fit the theory. Others suggested military involvement. During the Cold War, secret weapons tests were not uncommon. Some researchers believe the hikers may have witnessed something they were never supposed to see. Reports of strange lights in the sky around the same time only fueled speculation. Yet no definitive evidence has ever connected the incident to military activity. Then came the more unusual theories. Some people blamed extraterrestrials. Others pointed to cryptids, including the legendary Yeti. Stories spread across newspapers and television programs. The mystery became famous around the world. But despite the theories, no explanation fully accounted for all the evidence. In recent years, scientists revisited the case using modern technology, computer simulations, snow physics, weather data. One study suggested that a rare type of avalanche may have been responsible. According to researchers, a delayed slab avalanche could explain why the hikers suddenly abandoned their shelter. It could also account for some of the injuries. The theory gained attention because it relied on science rather than speculation. Yet not everyone was convinced. Critics argue that certain details remain unexplained. Why were some injuries so unusual? Why did the groups separate? Why were they unable to return to the tent? Even today, debate continues. What makes the Dyatlov Pass incident so fascinating is that every explanation seems incomplete. Each theory answers some questions while creating new ones. And that uncertainty has kept the mystery alive for generations. More than 60 years later, the 9 hikers remain symbols of one of history's most puzzling tragedies. Their final moments are still debated. Their decisions are still analyzed. And their story continues to inspire books, documentaries, films, and investigations around the world. Did a natural disaster force them from the tent? Did they encounter something unexpected in the wilderness? Or was there a crucial piece of the puzzle that has never been discovered? The truth may never be known, but one thing is certain. On a freezing night in February 1959, something happened on the slopes of Dead Mountain. Something powerful enough to send 9 experienced hikers running into the darkness. And that mystery remains unsolved to this day. If you enjoy true mysteries, unexplained events, and real-life investigations, subscribe to Story Vault Studio. Because every story has a secret,